Okay, welcome and good evening. My name is Julie Shields-Rutina, and I am the Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. And I am joined by my colleague this evening, Sean Morrissey. And Sean is the Director of College Relations. And Sean's going to help me with questions behind the scenes. And so between the two of us, hopefully you will learn a lot this evening and have all your questions answered. We're going to start in now. This presentation is being recorded, so we will be sending you the slides. And I'll say that as we get started, if you can sort of hold off on your questions at the beginning, because it's a very thorough presentation. We're going to cover a lot. But with that said, as I present, if I cover a topic and there are questions about that topic or I leave something out, feel free to ask your questions all the way along. But be assured that by the end, we'll cover all of them. All right, so tonight's topic is Financial Aid 101. And a few things about participating tonight. You are in control of your audio, so you can change that. We have disabled the chat so that all of the interaction will happen through the Q&A. It's easier to manage that way. If you would like closed captioning, you can hit the live transcript button to see the words that we're speaking across the screen. And if you do need to leave the webinar at any point, of course, that's fine. And we will follow up tomorrow with recording and with the slides. So you will have all of that for yourself to go back and look and or to share. All right, so MEFA is a state authority, and we've been around since 1982 with the mission of helping families plan, save, and pay for college. And we do the same thing today. We have some private loan programs if you need that type of funding when it comes time to paying for college. We also have the state's savings programs. We have the U Fund 529 plan that's managed by Fidelity. We have the U Plan prepaid tuition program. And we also have the Attainable program, which is a savings program for individuals with disabilities that allows them to save for education and many other expenses. And then everything else we do is free. We provide free guidance to families at whatever stage you and your student are at in this college process. So tonight's webinar is highly geared toward high school seniors, 12th graders who are getting ready to apply to college and to go through the financial aid process. But if you have a younger student and you're here just to learn, that's wonderful as well. So tonight we're going to talk about the types and sources of financial aid and the application process. And then we'll talk a little bit about how colleges make decisions about financial aid. And as we move along in the evening, we'll talk about how families pay for college. And throughout, we will share a lot of free resources with you. So just as an overview, here are some things happening in the financial aid landscape right now. So last year, the financial aid process was overhauled, and specifically the FAFSA application, which we'll talk about. And that was in order to simplify the form. So that's a great thing. However, it was a very challenging rollout last year, and it's been an ongoing struggle. But we're very hopeful that this year will be a much smoother rollout, and we're also much more prepared for anything that could go awry because we've been through it now. Another important point to know is I think discussions about college affordability are more important than ever. There are so many choices that students have, many paths, many different options, and higher education is expensive. So it's just worth having those discussions and including affordability in your decision making. We'll also talk about how one strategy that doesn't seem like a financial strategy, but really can be, is that curating a balanced college list of colleges that the student is going to apply to will give students more options to choose from. And so keeping choices and options open is all a part of, including affordability in the decision making. Another point that you'll hear us talk about this evening is that Massachusetts state aid for low and middle income families is greater than it's been in decades. So there's a lot of money, and there are some new programs at the state level, which are really terrific and really help with that affordability. And lastly, merit aid does continue to be an important part of the financial aid offer at many institutions. And so that you'll see how that fits in. All right, so types and sources. What do we mean when we're talking about financial aid? We're really talking about any money that is going to help your student pay for college. And we usually categorize that into three main types: grants and scholarships, which is gift aid, money that is awarded to the student and the student does not need to repay. Um, Although sometimes there are different definitions for grants and scholarships. They sometimes are also interchangeable. So the thing to know about grants and scholarships mostly is that they're both the best type of aid because they are awarded to the student and don't need to be repaid. And then a couple of other types of aid are federal work study. That's a program where students receive a work study allotment in an initial award from a college, but don't receive that money up front. It means they get a job while they're a student, usually on campus, and then they work and they're paid weekly or every other week or monthly, however, and they use that money for sort of miscellaneous expenses, some of their expenses that they have while they're a student, but that money doesn't come up front. And then a third category is federal student loans. And before you say loans, that's not financial aid. Um, these federal student loans are a little bit special and different than other loans and have some benefits. So we'll talk about why those are a part of the financial aid. So here are some things about the federal direct student loans. The student is the sole borrower. There's no credit check done. Okay, so no other loans are like that, right? So right away, that shows that these are a little bit special. There are two parts to the federal direct student loan, if you will. There's a subsidized portion and an unsubsidized portion. And if your family qualifies on the basis of financial need, you may be able to get some of that subsidized money, which means that no interest accrues. Well, I should say the federal government pays the interest on that loan while the student is in college. Whereas the other part, the unsubsidized part, the interest does accrue while the student is in college. But in neither case does the student need to make any payments until 6 months after graduation. The current interest rate on these loans is 6.53. It's a fixed interest rate for this year. The 25-26 rate will be set about May 2025. So that would be the rate that your students would receive in their freshman year. And once a student takes a loan, that interest rate stays fixed for the life of that loan. And then the next year, it might be a different interest rate, and the same thing would apply. As you can see on the right, the maximum amounts, the limits for these loans are: freshman year, student can borrow $5,500, sophomore year, $6,500, and then $7,500, $7,500 junior and senior year. So those are the limits. So if a student took all of the federal direct student loans they were eligible for as an undergraduate, they would graduate with about $27,000 in loans. And under a regular repayment, sort of the normal repayment plan, that would be about a $300 a month payment for 10 years. However, the other nice benefit of these student loans is there are other repayment options. And sort of the one that I'd like to talk about the most is that if a student graduates and doesn't have a job that allows them to pay that $300 a month for 10 years, they can choose a repayment plan that's tied to their income. And so they could maybe pay a lower amount and spread it out a little longer. But always knowing that you can always prepay on these loans at any point. So these loans also have deferment, forbearance, and some forgiveness opportunities. So it's good for a student early on when it comes time to be signing the promissory note about all of these to understand all of it. But with all these special benefits, that's why they're considered financial aid. And probably if borrowing needs to be in the picture, this is the way to go first. So then when we talk about all this money, what are the sources of financial aid? The federal government is a huge source. State governments, like in Massachusetts, um, is a source of financial aid. And then the colleges and universities themselves are also a big source of financial aid. And when you go through the financial aid process that we're going to talk about now, you really are applying for all federal, state, and college and university institutional aid. So that's all wrapped up in the one process. The one piece that's a little bit outside that is any outside scholarships, let's say through your employer or through the Coca-Cola Foundation or something like that, through your school, students will apply for those separately. And they can do that in a couple of ways. They can use some online tools, like we've listed a few here, MEFA Pathway or FastWeb, or they can also, what I like to say, keep your eyes open closer to home. So see what scholarships are in your school district, parent employers, student employers, community organizations. I always tell the story that my dentist has a little note at her desk that says she awards 2 scholarships to good community servants each year. So keep your eye open for things like that. But that's separate and outside of this financial aid process. And we'll end with on this slide with the good news that $177 billion was awarded to undergraduate students in 2022-23. So there is a lot of money out there, and it's a very good idea to apply for financial aid. And then how is this money awarded? It's awarded basically in 2 ways, and sometimes a combination, but some of it is awarded based on merit. And that means it's awarded in recognition of your students' achievements, academic, artistic, athletic. And in fact, I'll go as far to say that academic is the largest reason. We hear more about, sports scholarships or something, but really most merit money is awarded to students who have great grades and have made those type of achievements in high school. A few things to know about any money that you receive that's merit. That it might have some criteria in order to keep that scholarship in future years. So the college might award a merit scholarship, but say that the student needs to keep a 3.0 grade point average to keep that. So just good to find out what those criteria are. Not every college has merit money. For example, the easy one that the example is Ivy League colleges don't have any merit money. It's all based on need. When you're perusing the college websites, it's good to just check in the admissions and financial aid section to see if there's some type of special financial aid application for any merit money. Most of it, goes through this normal financial aid process. But some may have a special application and may have early deadlines. And then money that's not awarded based on merit is awarded based on financial need. And that's need as determined by a formula that's part of this financial aid process that we'll talk about. And need-based financial aid can come in all forms, grants, loans, work study, and most financial aid is need-based. And one thing students do need to be doing is making satisfactory academic progress as determined by the college to continue to receive their need-based aid. All right, so let's talk about, I guess I'll just ask you, Sean, anything we should go over from that section? Any questions?
No, we're good so far. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the application process and the timeline. So each college, just as they do for the admissions process, has deadlines They have a deadline for admission and they have a deadline for financial aid. And those can all be different. So I would say when you're looking at those websites, why don't you create a nice little chart for yourself and write down what the financial aid deadlines are. So basically the admissions and financial aid processes work alongside each other. They're usually a different deadline, but very close. And then if a student is deciding to apply early action or early decision in one of those admissions processes, there's probably a separate financial aid deadline that is in the fall. So really pay close attention to those deadlines. Do not miss a deadline because even though if you miss a deadline, you might be okay. If a college runs out of money and needs to cut, they're going to award money to students who met the deadlines. So just do yourself a favor and don't miss any deadlines. Um, and then we mentioned the fall if you're applying early action or early decision, but if you're applying regular, the deadlines are typically in February or March. One thing about this process is there are a lot of little pieces, so it's just good to stay organized. And MEFA has this college application manager. You can download that, and that is a great way to keep track of what forms are needed, what are deadlines. And we created this by copying what we've seen families bring to us, spreadsheets and all. So if you want to just make your own spreadsheet, or however you stay organized, that's great. But it is a good idea to stay organized with all of this. All right, so the main form that you're going to complete to apply for financial aid at every college is the FAFSA. It's the free application for federal student aid. And that's the one that I told you has gone through a revamp and has been simplified. So that is good news. You must complete the FAFSA every year. And the FAFSA is available at the website fafsa.gov. Now, this year, like last year, it was delayed. It's usually available on October 1st. Last year, it was really delayed. This year, it's due to launch on December 1st. So put that in your calendar right now and just know and if you stay in touch with MEFA, we'll let you know when it's launching. And I would say complete that form as soon after it launches as you can. There's no reason to hold off. And so get that piece done in December. And you'll be doing the 2025-26 FAFSA if you are a high school senior right now. The way the form works is anyone whose information is going to be on the form is called a contributor. So the easiest way to go through the FAFSA is for the student to start the form and put in their information and then invite the other contributors. And then each contributor can go in, has a separate section, and when everyone is done, you can submit the FAFSA. That's how that works. And you want to try to get that done all together so it doesn't sit out there, because if it sits out there for over 45 days, then it could be deleted. We also have another webinar. Make note that there is an Understanding the FAFSA webinar that will go through all of the fields on the form. Now, before you even start the form, what you need to do is create an FSA ID. And basically, that's just a username and password for the FAFSA. And you have to have an FSA ID to log in. You can do that now. So that's a good thing. You can do that way before December, have it all ready, and then put it in a place. I don't know where you keep your secret passwords, but put it in a good place that you won't lose it, and then you'll be set to file the FAFSA as soon as it launches, okay? And you can go to studentaid.gov, FSA ID, create account. And you need to have your email address. And then who needs an FSA ID? The student needs an FSA ID. If the student happens to be married, then the student's spouse would need to also have an FSA ID if they filed taxes separately or didn't file. And then every parent listed on the FAFSA, except a big exception, if parents are married and filed taxes jointly, only one parent needs an FSA ID. So it will be the student and either one or two parents that will need an FSA ID. And then you'll all have those, keep them in a safe place, and you'll be ready to complete the FAFSA. For families where a parent doesn't have a social security number, to get an FSA ID, the parent will answer knowledge-based questions that are pulled from a credit history, and that's how they will be able to create an FSA ID. All right, so what's reported on the FAFSA? Some general demographic information, student citizenship status. All US citizens and eligible non-citizens can receive federal financial aid. One note is that here in Massachusetts, now undocumented students may be eligible for mass in-state tuition and state aid. So that's new as of last year. Students in that category still can't file the FAFSA, but there's another form in Massachusetts called the MASFA, MASFA. And so they can file that form to be eligible for the state programs. And then it asks what colleges you're applying to. So you'll put some colleges there, and then those colleges will receive the information from your FAFSA. If you know a couple of colleges you're going to apply to, you can start the form and send it there, and you can add colleges later. And then it will ask questions about parents and what is your marital status. Okay, so if you're married, including same-sex parents, you'll include both parents on the form. All parents who live together, married or not, both people's information will be on the form. And then for students whose parents are divorced or separated, the parent who needs to file the FAFSA with the student is the parent who provided more financial support in the last 12 months. And if that person happens to be remarried, it's the current spouse as well. Okay, so that's the parent that needs to file the FAFSA, and then the other parent does not need to file the FAFSA. Now, it will ask that question of who provided more financial support. And if you pick a parent, that's great. If parents provided equal support, then it will say, you'll say equal support, and then the form will direct you to use the parent with greater income and assets. Okay, so it's very step by step so that you'll be able to see which parent and parents should be listed on the form. And legal guardians are not a parent. Then it will ask the number in household. It will pull that information from the IRS when the taxes are imported, but you can update that if that's not accurate. It will also ask about the number of children in college, although that is no longer used in the calculation, but it is there, so the colleges will receive that information. All right, and then it will ask a lot of financial information, but it has become a lot easier. So really, it's almost with the push of a button that you will say, yes, import my 2023 tax income for the 25-26 FAFSA. Press the button. It will bring in your tax information. It won't show it on the screen for security purposes. And it will also collect any untaxed income that appears on the tax return. And then it will collect some information about assets as well, parent and student. So you'll include the value of your savings, checking, investments, businesses, farms, other property. It will include education savings accounts as a parent asset for the student whose FAFSA you're doing. You don't have to report the ones for your other children. It will not ask you any questions about your primary home, so you don't have to put any information about the value of your home or the value of your qualified retirement plans or any life insurance. You don't have to include information about any of those three things. And as a note, any child support received is considered an asset. Now, the form really doesn't ask you about any debt that you have. The only debt would be if you had an investment and then you had some debt on that investment, it would be the difference that would be the value of that asset. But for example, it doesn't ask you about any consumer debt or anything like that. So if you have any unusual circumstances, we'll talk with you about how to share those. Then after, as I said, all colleges require the FAFSA. Some colleges also require an additional form called the CSS profile. Okay. And that's because the FAFSA has become a lot simpler. Um, we have had reports of families telling us it only takes about 10 minutes to complete it with pressing the button for the taxes and all of that. So that can be fairly simple. But some colleges who have a lot of their own institutional grant and scholarship dollars feel like the FAFSA form doesn't ask enough questions for them to be able to differentiate among families. As I mentioned, it doesn't collect information on the value of your primary residence. If in a divorced or separated parent situation, it doesn't collect information about the other parent. So some colleges require this additional form to gather more information. And if your college requires it, then you need to do the form. So this one costs a little bit of money. It costs $25 to send it to the first school and $16 for each additional college you send it to. Although there are fee waivers if parent income is under $100,000 or the family meets other criteria. This will become available on October 1st. So if your student is applying to colleges that require this form, get this one done. Get it done right in October. And for many of these institutions that require the CSS profile, it will, if parents are divorced or separated, it's sort of the same criteria as on the FAFSA. There'll be a FAFSA parent, CSS profile parent, and spouse, if applicable. But then the CSS profile many times will ask the other parent to also complete the profile. And those are submitted separately. They never cross, and nobody ever sees anyone's information. But the other parent usually has to do a profile as well. And we do have a webinar all about the profile, a couple of them actually, if you want to take a look at that. Additionally, sometimes a college may have their own financial aid application. You can look for that. And one more thing, how do you know? I get this question a lot. How do you know what colleges require the CSS profile? So two ways. One, you can look on the financial aid page of the college website and see what the requirements are, where it says, oh, we require the FAFSA and it's due November 15th. It will also tell you if they require the CSS profile. So that's a good way to check it out. Also, if you go to cssprofile.org/participating institutions, you will see on the College Board, on the profile website, it will give you a list of all colleges by state who require the profile. So two ways to find that out. So then after you apply, you send off your information on one form or two to the colleges that you're applying to, and the colleges and the state receive your data electronically. From filing the FAFSA, the student will receive a FAFSA submission summary, FSS, by email. And just know that as colleges are working through these applications, they have a process called verification. They may write to you, they may ask you for additional documentation. So just stay on top of any of that to make sure you have a complete financial aid application. And that takes a little while for colleges to go through that so that they can send you an admissions offer. And the ideal is that they send you a financial aid offer very close to the time that they send you an admissions decision, because they know you need that information to be able to make a decision. So just know that, and you can review the college websites to hear about each college's timing. And this is that verification process that I just referenced. So colleges are obligated to verify a certain number of applications. And so if colleges are asking you for additional information, such as a tax return transcript or asset account statements, just send them in, answer, make sure you get that all done. Um, Colleges may email you, or they may have a web portal set up that you go in, you create an account, and that's how you get information. And that's where you can see if there's anything missing. So again, pay attention. Each college could do that a little bit differently. It sometimes is a good idea to create a family email address for financial aid process so that things don't get lost and things do get answered. So let's talk a little bit about the financial aid office at each college, especially once you apply for admission and apply for financial aid. The financial aid office at that college then becomes just a really great source of information. I mean, they're always a great source. And you probably have met some people if you go to a college for a tour or something like that. But especially after you apply, they're a great source. So you can ask them questions about financial aid renewability criteria. So once you receive a financial aid offer and there's some different monies in there, you can make sure that you know that they're renewable from year to year. You could ask them a question about, if I have a private outside scholarship, does that affect my financial aid? And let's say you apply for financial aid in December, and then, I don't know, there's a significant financial event in your family in January or February before your financial aid offer is sent to you. Um, any changes in family circumstances, you should feel free to reach out to the financial aid office and give them more information about the changes in your family circumstances with as many dollar amounts as you can. So they have all that information to try to make the best award offer for you. And even once they've sent an award offer to you, if it's students' first choice and you're trying to piece it together and you can't figure out how you're going to be able to make these numbers work, you can send an appeal to the college asking for some help to try to figure that out. And colleges will tell you how they'd like to be contacted. Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's email, maybe it's chat. But I think it's best to follow what's best for each college. All right, I will stop again, Sean, before we talk about how decisions are made, just in case there are any outstanding questions.
Julie, I don't know if you're addressing this in the next section, but there have been a couple of questions about what to do about the early decision deadlines when the FAFSA is going to be coming out on December 1st.
Ah, so great. So what I'd say is, um, a lot of, so quickly, early decision being different from early action, because early action means you apply early, but you still don't need to let the college know until May if you're coming up. But early decision usually has, you're saying, if you accept me, I will come. Um, but you need a financial aid offer to make that decision. Many colleges that have early decision programs require the CSS profile. So that's the first thing I'll say. So many will be able to give you an award offer. If they can't, they understand that you need that to be able to commit. So really, that should not be a problem for you. Just get that CSS profile done. When the FAFSA comes out, get that form done. So you give the colleges everything they need from your side, and then colleges, you know, really know that you can't fully commit until you have a financial aid offer. If something feels like pressure is getting tricky, be in touch with that college and just talk with them about that. But we found this year that we were very anxious about that. But again, most of the early decision colleges use the CSS profile or another type of form that allows the college to make a preliminary award for you. All right, so how are colleges making these decisions? So the first thing a college needs to do when they're thinking about awarding financial aid to a student is they need to come up with, well, what is the cost of attendance? What is it going to cost a student to attend this college for a year? And so they come up with a full cost of attendance, which includes tuition and fees, food and housing, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. Now, you'll note that some of these are billed expenses and some of these are non-billed, but they're all expenses that a student will need that much money to attend for the year. So the college comes up with that cost of attendance each year. And then from the forms that you complete, the FAFSA and the CSS profile if necessary, your financials will be put through a formula, and it's a standard formula. The federal formula is the same used for every family. And if the colleges are using an institutional formula, it might be their own formula, but it's the same for every family. And a number pops out at the bottom called the student aid index. And so then that is a rough estimate of an amount that it's determined that your family can contribute to the college costs before financial aid is awarded. So really then the equation is cost of attendance minus your family's student aid index number, and the difference is your financial aid eligibility. So that's the amount that the colleges then work to create an award that either meets your financial aid eligibility or tries to meet a good portion of your financial aid eligibility. Some colleges, those that have more resources, might be able to meet your full financial aid eligibility, and you can get away with just paying your student aid index number. But many colleges can't do that. And so they try to build you an award that meets a lot of it, but may not meet all of it. So at this point, this is where I get to do some acting. I get to pretend that I'm a financial aid administrator. I once was. Um, and I am going to make an award for this student based on a few things. My college has a cost of attendance of $45,000, and I your family's student aid index is $5,000. So how would I make an award for this student? Well, first I would say, okay, the student needs $45,000 to attend my college for the year, and the family's SAI is 5,000. I'm going to put that first. I'm going to take the family's supposed money at first. And then I'm going to award a grant, a need-based grant of 17,500, and a $10,000 scholarship because your student has a straight A average in high school. And then I'm going to award a student loan of $5,500, which is the freshman maximum, and a work study allotment of $2,000, allowing the student to work on campus during the year and be able to earn money to pay for some of those miscellaneous book transportation expenses. And then that's all my college can do. We're not a college that can meet the full need because we don't have endless resources. So, we're still able to award a grant and a scholarship, but there's some unmet need there. So then as a family, for your son or daughter to attend this college, you would need to come up with the $5,000 of your student aid index money and $5,000 of unmet need to make sure that your student had everything they needed to be in attendance at this college. So one way you can sort of play with this before your student is accepted and receives financial aid offers, just to get a sense of what type of financial aid offers you might receive, is there are tools called net price calculators, and they're on every college website. Some are better than others, just the truth is, but it's a good tool. And you can go in and you can fill these out as you will a financial aid form eventually, and it will give you a personal estimated net college price, meaning it will say to you, here's an estimate of what your SAI is and what type of aid you might be able to receive, if your student comes here. And that net price calculator might, it asks financial questions, but it may also ask academic questions. You know, what is your student's GPA? What is your student's SAT score? And that way, some merit aid might also be included in that. I tend to advise to not use these calculators as a set in stone. For example, I probably would advise not to say to a student, don't apply to that college because we did the net price calculator and you didn't get any financial aid. But you could possibly say, I did the net price calculator. It looks like we're not going to get a lot of aid at this college. Maybe get a few other colleges on your list, to make sure that you have many options and choices in the spring, something like that. And one thing that's confusing about this financial aid process, as if what I've talked about so far isn't, um, is that when you receive your financial aid offers, they can vary greatly from college to college. So here's an example of what you may encounter. Um, so here are three colleges, colleges A, B, and C. And just for the purposes of an example, they all cost $45,000. And we already told you your SAI in this example is $5,000. So as a family, your aid eligibility for A, B, and C would be $40,000. And yet, this is what you might receive when you receive these offers. College A might be one of those colleges that meets full need. And if they are, they'll probably tell you that on their website as well. So College A has given a very nice grant of $32,500, student loan, work study, totaling $40,000. So they have really met your financial need. College B, on the other hand, they've still given a great scholarship, 25,500, the student loan, the work study, but the aid only totals 33,000. So there is some unmet need there. So again, that's a college where you'd need to come up with about $12,000 to allow your student to attend. And then College C, doesn't have as many resources and has awarded a scholarship of 17,500, the loan, the work study, for a total of $25,000 in aid, leaving an unmet need of $15,000. So that would really leave you a bill of about $20,000 to come up with each year. And you know, sometimes this is where need and merit both come into the picture, where it might be that at College C, depending on um, where your student falls in the admissions pool. Are they at the top of the admissions pool, in the middle of the admissions pool, lower in the admissions pool? That this grant and scholarship might vary a little bit. So, the need-based aid is awarded, but sometimes your student could get a boost if they were in the top of the admissions pool. So that factors in here sometimes too. But this is what you will see. And so this is when it becomes really important to compare apples to apples, see what you would need to come up with as a family once financial aid is awarded. And MEFA does have a calculator to help you do this called the College Cost Calculator on our website. And this slide is pretty much my least favorite, but we continue to show this because it's really important information. So here's another view at 3 award letters that could come from colleges A, B, and C. And if you quickly look at the aid total, you would say, oh, these 3 colleges all gave the same amount of aid, $35,000, but they didn't. So look more closely and you'll see that College C gave no grant scholarship and no work study. And look at this. What's this? Colleges B and C put something called a parent loan in there. And I'm going to just say it right out. I don't like when colleges do this, because any parent loan is going to require a credit check, and it's a decision for the family if you want to take a parent loan. You may end up taking a parent loan to pay and figure out how you're going to pay that unmet need and your SAI. But this is not financial aid. This is it's showing you what some options are to pay, but it's not comparing apples to apples. So be aware, and you would want to take that out when you were comparing apples to apples to see what you're really going to owe at these three colleges and have a good sense of the affordability of each and how much you're going to need to come up with to pay. And then, when you have the bill, you'll know you might need to take a parent loan, but that's your decision and shouldn't be part of the award. But we still see it, and so we want to warn you about that. All right, I'll stop one more moment, just to see if there are any questions before I move to the next section, Sean.
You're good.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move along to how you're going to pay. So let's say the whole financial aid process went along fine. You received financial aid, admissions offers for the student, financial aid offers, and you're at a point in the spring where you're thinking, okay, how are we going to pay? Your student has chosen a college, and you think it's affordable, although the balance due here that you're going to owe each year is $20,000. How as a family, how are you going to put that together? How are you going to pay that? So every family is going to do that a little bit differently. And I'm just going to give an example about how one family might come up with $20,000 to pay. So this family might say, well, the student has been working summers and during the school year, even in high school, and has a good amount of savings. So we're going to take $1,000 of the student savings, and that's going to be part of it. We as parents, we've been saving in a 529 plan. We're going to take some of that and use $4,000 of our 529 plan to pay. And then the college, because most colleges do, has a monthly payment plan. And that's a plan that's not a loan. The colleges will tell you about it. It's a way that instead of paying the typical way, which is to pay in August and pay in December, pay in August for the fall, December for the spring, where you can split out the cost over 9 months to 12 months. And so this example family just paid off a car loan and has an additional $500 in the monthly budget right now. So they're going to join the monthly payment plan and pay $500 for 10 months. So that's $5,000 toward the 20. And then this family is going to say, I think we're going to borrow an education loan. So we're going to borrow a $10,000 loan. And that would probably be a loan, in the student and parent's name, because other than those federal student loans that we talked about, any additional loans that you need are more like typical loans. So this family is going to borrow that loan, and that is how they're going to come up with the $20,000 so that the student can attend. Again, you'll all do that a little bit differently, but I just wanted to show that. And this is my nice little place where I like to say, the more savings you have, if you've been saving and worried that somehow you're going to hurt yourself with financial aid, just know that no, everything you've saved, you're going to be so happy, and it is going to take the pressure off when it comes to this point in the process. So any savings you have is good. And, I love to call these kitchen table conversations. Don't we seem to do a lot of our stuff like that at the kitchen table? So it's really important, some steps to take to really compare apples to apples, as we talked about, to make sure you can see really what is each school's net price. That's the price that you're going to end up paying. We're going to talk about this Massachusetts program in a minute, but just to know that, let's say you got to that point in the process, this point, let me just go back right here. And this $20,000 balance isn't going to work for your family. It's just not going to work for your family. Well, there's some other things to think about. Would a student starting at a community college save significant money? Yes. Um, and so maybe your student could do that. Get all of those general general requirements out of the way, and then join a 4-year college. Um, you as parents maybe need to consider the number of children you'll be sending to college over the next number of years. Um, Students probably want to think about, do I know my plan for the future? Maybe I don't, but some might, am I going to be in a program that's going to require that I get a master's degree? Or am I going into an engineering program that tells me that the average salary of graduates of this program is $88,000? There are those around. That might make the student feel a little bit better about taking on a little extra debt. We never know the future, but just weighing all of those, that information can be super helpful. And then I promised I'd talk about these really good programs here in Massachusetts. So first, I'll just say there's the Mass Aid portal. That's where students can see their Massachusetts state financial aid, and there might be none. Many times, don't panic if you have no state aid. It doesn't mean you're not going to get federal aid and institutional aid. Um, and when you complete the FAFSA, it goes to the state. So that's great. That's automatic. But here are some new programs in Massachusetts that I just want you to be aware of. I mentioned earlier that some undocumented students can receive mass state aid and in-state tuition through the Massachusetts tuition equity law. So if that applies to you, if you know anyone that might apply to, please spread the word on that. And that those students would complete the MASFA, MASFA, and then they could take advantage of that state aid. Mass Grant Plus is a grant program that has been expanded, and it allows free or reduced tuition and fees for low and middle income students and a potential book allowance. So that's for all public colleges. So that's important to know. So an education at a public institution in Massachusetts these days is more affordable than it has been in decades. Mass Educate is free community college. Yes, starting now, community college in Massachusetts, and I mean just tuition and fees, is free for all students. So that's really important to know. Spread the word. And again, if a student decides to take advantage of that, that could really, you know, increase the affordability for you and your family. Mass transfer then is a program that helps a student who begins at a community college and then wants to transfer to a Massachusetts community 4-year college, that allows reduced costs all the way along. So that's another option. You can check out that mass transfer website to get all kinds of details. And Tuition Break is a program through the New England Board of Higher Education, which allows a reduced out-of-state tuition costs at usually flagship colleges in New England, other New England states like New Hampshire and Connecticut and Maine. So if students attend one of those public colleges out of state, and the program that they're attending is on that list for tuition break, they can actually go to an out-of-state school for Massachusetts in-state costs. And there's a good website there. A few additional areas of support over the next months. I will just start by saying you can always call MEFA. You can email collegeplanning@mefa.org. We are here to help you through this process. We are the college planning team, terrific team of people who just loves helping students and families. If you want help completing the FAFSA, we will have a number of events starting after December 1st. And we call them FAFSA festivals, where you can join us online on Zoom for one-on-one help completing the FAFSA. In addition, our partner organization, FAFSA Day, does something similar, and fafsaday.org is a place that you can go to get that type of help as well. Massachusetts Educational Opportunity Centers are a great place that you can go in, sit down, get help with all this information. And another great tool is MEFA's MEFA's portal, MEFA Pathway for students in grades 6 through 12, mefapathway.org. You can go create an account and you can do all kinds of research on careers and colleges. It's a really terrific tool, all free. And this is a calendar for you, a timeline of what you can, students can do spring and summer junior year, fall of senior year, and into the winter, and then spring of senior year. And you'll see throughout we've put information about the different webinars you can attend at different times. And you can also find that on our website, download that at mefa.org, College Admissions and Financial Aid Timeline. And here's where you would register for other MEFA webinars, get our timeline, and sign up for MEFA emails, although because you attended this webinar, we're signing you up anyway, so that's good. So what you can start to do now is get an FSA ID for the student and parent or parents, and do all of that research for deadlines and what's required for both admissions and financial aid purposes. And here are all our social media handles. So if you like Facebook, if you like Instagram, X, we put a lot of great articles on LinkedIn. We have a lot of videos on YouTube, and we also have a MEFA podcast. And you can listen to that on whatever podcast app you use. It's called the MEFA podcast. And I mentioned this already, but you can call us at 1-800-449-MEFA, or you may email us at collegeplanning@mefa.org. So I'll go back to that and I'll just stop and ask what questions you have. What did I not cover thoroughly enough?
Julie, I'm not sure if you covered this during the mass aid portion because I was typing answers to questions, but there was a question about what is low or middle income considered in Massachusetts. Can you
Yeah,
give a little bit of information on that?
no, that's good. So, low income might be students who would receive a Pell Grant, which is, a federal Pell Grant, which is for the lowest income students. In fact, believe it or not, depending on the family size, your income could still, Sean, you can even help me here, it could still be 75, $80,000 if you had a larger family, right? And still be eligible for possibly some Pell Grant.
That's
Um,
correct.
would you say that is correct?
Yes, I'd say probably up to about 80,000, but it's not just, like you said, it's family size that's also in there, that determines what it is. So it's not just income. So it's the whole picture of the family when they fill out the FAFSA that determines the need that then determines mass state aid.
That's great. And then, for middle, I know that some families with up to $100,000 in income would be eligible for some of this aid that would make it, free tuition and fees at the public colleges too. So I think it goes up a little bit further. But again, there's no exact income because it depends on family size and some other factors. Yeah. Anything else? I do see a raised hand. I wonder if you could if you have raised your hand, if you could put your question in the Q&A. Well, I guess not. Then I will just say thank you so much. Good luck. Stay in touch with us, and we'll let you know when the FAFSA is released. You know you can get started on the CSS profile, get your FSA ID, and we're here to help all the way along. So thank you and have a good evening. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Julie.